This'll do.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Invincible Season 3, Episode 6 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad, a couple other guest stars, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. It's just getting started. We have Invincible War starting next week. There will probably be a couple big things in the next few episodes. But the episode title was All I Can Say Is I'm Sorry, which is a reference to Invincible number 59, where Powerplex confronts him about the death of his sister during his battle with Omni-Man in Season 1 that destroyed a giant chunk of Chicago. Invincible responds with that line, All I Can Say Is I'm Sorry, and that happens during their big final fight you see during this episode. And even though all characters on Invincible are tragic in some way, like have tragic storylines, Powerplex being one of the most tragic characters, particularly in this episode, because through his own actions, he winds up getting his own wife and son killed when they didn't have to die. There are a number of points in the episode where they try to show you very obviously that had he just waited, things would have happened the way he wanted, like he would have eventually confronted Invincible without having to put his wife and child at risk. But the other side of this, on Invincible's side, this battle with Powerplex is him also having to confront the collateral damage of his battles with the Viltrumites, his father Omni-Man, just his own use of power in general, and what does it mean to have that much strength if you wind up hurting more people in collateral damage than the ones that you're fighting to save? Like, how do you use this level of power in the right way? What is the right way to be a superhero, which they also use Oliver's storyline to try and show you too. Like, they're trying to show him how to be a good superhero without causing collateral damage. As I said, Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad is playing Powerplex. He's a parody of Electro in the Marvel Universe with a couple of twists on the way his powers work, using the kinetic damage to power him up. A little bit like Static Shock too. You can look at him a couple different ways. Most of the characters on Invincible draw inspiration from a couple different characters in Marvel DC. The opening scene starts with a flashback to him and his sister during Invincible's fight against Omni-Man during the Season 1 in Chicago, when all those people got killed. They use his game with his niece to show you how his powers work and the limitations that are on them, at least at this point in the timeline. So the idea is that each time he takes kinetic damage, it powers him up to a certain degree, but he's only able to hold a small charge without the extra devices that he steals from the GDA. Which is why he tells his niece, I can't make it bigger because it can't store more energy. They reveal he survived the attack because he chose to get coffee, and the building was one of the ones destroyed during the fight, Invincible getting thrown against it after he got punched by Omni-Man. He literally watches Invincible hit his sister's building, it be destroyed, and then the rubble, he sees him stand up and pick up body parts from his sister. But because he can't hear what they're talking about, he doesn't actually know what's going on here in this moment. He just assumes that they did this on purpose. They jump forward in time closer to present day after he started wearing his blue suit, and he's trying to file a case with the Chicago District Attorney, trying to get her to go after Invincible, which she tells him she can't because he's above the laws of the Earth. Like, this goes beyond our laws. We can't do anything about it. I think the other reason she doesn't want to go after Invincible, because obviously she doesn't want to die, like physically be killed by him. Also, Cecil in the GDA probably told the rest of the world's governments to lay off Invincible. All because they're more worried about the other Viltrumites than they are about Invincible. Like, well, he's good for now, we'll try to use him as a deterrent for the other Viltrumites if that's possible until Oliver gets old enough. Which kind of gives Invincible a free pass to do whatever he wants, but because he's not a psychopath, obviously it's not as bad as it could be. But at least at this part of the timeline, they want to show you that at least up to this moment, Powerplex has been a relatively good, upstanding member of the community, like try to be a good person, pursue justice in the right way above board. But this winds up being his villain origin story, essentially, where she shuts him down, saying that Invincible is above the law. So Powerplex goes full Thanos, saying, fine, I'll do it myself, and develops this long-term plan, like this long con, to find a way to take him down using the GDA technology. Then we find out at some point he was able to infiltrate the GDA and use that to gain access to detailed files and video on Invincible, and basically work in the department that tried to find weaknesses that they could use as deterrents against Invincible, like the inner ear weakness. Basically studying all of his fights and using that to upgrade the Reaniman each time they made new versions. Notice in the background on the monitor is his fight with Anissa during Season 2. I love the way they use this in the later conversation during lunch, arguing between them about whether or not he would have won that fight. Then we see Oliver's fight against the Mauler twins when he absolutely wrecked them. This is an arm from one of the Reanimen recently. This is another power suit that they're testing Iron Man style for a GDA soldier to wear. Another high-powered beam weapon they're developing, and then he clocks them testing an electrical weapon that works kind of like a battery because his powers work the same way, so he just senses that he can use this to make himself more powerful. And when they go to lunch and they are arguing about whether or not Invincible would have won that fight with Anissa, the woman is right. He would not have won, even if he hadn't have quit. She would have just continued pounding him into the ground because he's not strong enough at that point when they were fighting. She was way, way more powerful at that point, but she wasn't trying to kill him. That was the whole idea. She would have just continued wrecking him, but not actually trying to kill him. I also think one of the reasons why they're referencing Anissa is because they're also talking about the other Viltrumites coming back eventually, which will happen eventually. Like Conquest is going to be showing up by the end of the season, but also Anissa will be back at some point too. Not till season 4, like it'll be a while before she shows up, but she will be back and there will be hell to pay. Cannot wait to see how they deal with that storyline. Gonna be real interesting to see how they try to tiptoe around that one. You also notice they refer to Oliver as Subject 2A, implying that he'll be their next weapon against the more Viltrumites that will show up. Definitely soon showing up. Then they go back to that same burger mart that they always use during the series, like it's always the same burger mart shop that they go to, and Oliver practicing being a superhero, helping people by stopping Elephant, who's a parody of the Rhino in the Marvel Universe. They layer a whole bunch of jokes during this scene, the first one being that Elephant's whole reason for going after the Burger Mart is because he's a hardcore animal activist and against eating meat, so he's pissed off at the people for eating the burgers, eating the meat. Notice they also tell Oliver to try and not cause collateral damage, like lead the fight away from the Burger Mart so that you don't destroy it so that we can get burgers later, like there's a logic to it, because he's still a little kid inside his head, like you have to explain it to him like a little kid. Wait a minute, if I don't destroy it, we can get burgers in a second. Elephant then getting even more pissed, like the joke continues when he finds out that they're just using him for more practice takedowns. Like, oh, that's all you're doing here? You're just using this for practice? Crap. Invincible also revealing later that Omni-Man made him do the exact same thing, use Elephant for practice when he was first trying to be a superhero at the beginning of Season 1. So you have to imagine that Elephant Man has faced this group of people many, many times before, all in humiliating ways. Oliver keeps talking about Omni-Man turning heel during Season 1 and how the world views him now and whether or not he'll ever be able to redeem himself and become a superhero in everyone's eyes, all meant to foreshadow a couple big things that are coming up, and basically the rest of the episode too, meant to parallel with Powerplex's storyline and Invincible's storyline. The whole idea is that Invincible wants to be viewed as a superhero by the world even though he is a Viltrumite and is the son of Omni-Man. Like, will people think of me as a good superhero even though my father is this evil person, did all these terrible things? But it's also foreshadowing the eventual redemption of Omni-Man, which they started with the whole Viltrumite prison break arc in Alan the Alien, convincing him to help the Coalition. But it's still very, very early days with that. Like, they're just slowly seeding that in the background. We'll probably check in with that storyline before the end of the season at least once. The other reason why Omni-Man keeps coming up in conversation on Earth is because eventually those two storylines, the Earth-based storyline and the Viltrumite War storyline, will intersect. But it's going to be a while before that happens. Invincible and Adam Eve basically try to explain the whole morality of this to Oliver, but like I said, because he's a little kid, he still has the logic that a little kid has and can't completely understand how complex the situation is. Like, it's not that simple, like saving a bunch of lives doesn't balance out all the lives that you killed. Then a lot of these early Powerplex scenes with him and his wife and his son, him testing out his gear, are really meant to make you feel for him, like you feel sad for him, like this is what he has become. You also start to see him slowly going crazy if you didn't already think he was crazy before this. His wife is voiced by Kate Mara, if you detected her voice, and because we have a new Fantastic Four movie coming from Marvel later this year, you'll remember Kate Mara was Invisible Woman during the 2015 attempt at Fantastic Four. Did not go very well. She might not want you to go rewatch that movie, but it's out there to revisit before the new Fantastic Four movie comes if you want. Even though she's right out of the comics, his wife is right out of the comics and his son, the way they animate her in the episode kind of reminded me of Kristen Ritter's Jane character on Breaking Bad, who was in a relationship with Aaron Paul's Jesse. Walter White killed her or helped hasten her death by overdose, after Jesse threatened to leave their Blue Crystal operation after he fell in love with her. R.I.P. Jane, she eventually came back as Jessica Jones in the Marvel Universe, and we will eventually see her during Daredevil Born Again, Season 2, again in the MCU. And in the episode, you see how grief-stricken his wife still is and upset over what's happening. Like, she's not quite as crazy as he is, but she's very complicit in what's going on and pushing him along. Like, no, you'll get him eventually. Keep going, keep trying. Each time he feels like he's failed and is ready to give up, she pushes him on to continue pursuing Invincible. So it's not like she's completely innocent in all this, but she is also a tragic figure because she winds up being collateral damage. Basically, their whole family has turned into a complete mess, and you start to feel very sorry for them throughout the episode. But the other twist here, too, is that he winds up being the person responsible for the missing inventory that the other GDA scientists were complaining about because he took the electrical weapon, basically batteries that will allow him to store enough electricity to hurt Invincible, or so he thinks. They show you her using the sledgehammer against him to create enough kinetic damage to charge up the batteries, also to show you how crazy things have gotten for them that she's willing to do that to him. Normally, a wife would probably be like, no, I'm not going to smash you with a sledgehammer. But it does seem like part of his power allows him to soak that kind of damage. Like, normally you hit a person with a sledgehammer like that, you knock them out cold, but he seems like he takes it, like he doesn't bleed from a lot of these attacks. So it does seem like his biology, his body, is very efficient in transforming kinetic damage into electrical power. They go to dinner at Mark's house, and the whole Paul-Debbie storyline here isn't something from the comics. They're just trying to fill out her storyline. Basically, a lot of the stuff that happens to her in the comics that are actually pretty relevant doesn't happen until much, much later. So really all the Paul stuff is just there to give her something to do while all this other storyline is going on. Powerplex tries the first time to bait Invincible with a larger display of power to show up unsuccessfully, but it was pretty wicked seeing him throw himself off the building and using the kinetic damage from the fall to power himself up even more. We found out the reason why he doesn't show up is because he's trying to hang out with his friends and it's William's birthday, so he's just trying to have a regular night out with everybody. There are a couple of jokes about William's birthday request letting him win all the bowling matches. Amber shows up with her new boyfriend, it gets super weird. Turns out she has a type because he's also a Seance Dog fanboy, which they briefly geek out over. But I think they're just using this storyline because there is like a brief Amber interaction at this point in the story around Invincible War in the comics, but it went down a little bit differently. Like he winds up helping Amber out, but it's different from what you see here during the party. Then they pull one of the weirdest Invincible title needle drops that they have done so far on the show. Notice it's in the middle of the episode. They've done this before, like they've done title drops in the middle of an episode before, but this time they basically just replace every single use of the word Invincible with the title multiple times until the final time when they land on all the cycling different colors for the different versions of Invincible from the multiverse that we see in the post-credit scene. The reason why the first couple times the title is just the original colors from Season 1 is meant to be a reference to his costume colors from Season 1 when Powerplex's sister and his niece died. And even though he's absolutely losing it during this scene, the way they treat it is a more comedic way because the bystanders are stuck in traffic, like they could care less about what's happening with him yelling about Invincible and the people that he killed. Then Shapesmith winds up being the one to show up and they use him for a big comedic scene, trying to take him down, also showing you what happens with his power, that all the punches just power him up even more. The more you attack him, the more powerful he gets. Love the way he gets super gross and technical about the way his costume works. Like, technically I'm naked, but it looks like I'm wearing a costume because it's made from my body. Also noted, he really hates cats. Notice when he shapeshifts into Invincible, he also speaks with Mark's voice briefly until he starts pounding him again. And you start to notice this during all of Powerplex's subsequent fights. When he fights Shapesmith, winds up punching him into a building, causing a bunch of collateral damage, the exact reason, like the exact event, the same thing that he got pissed at Invincible for killing his sister. Basically Powerplex doing all the same things that he's mad at Invincible for. They're very careful to show you, though, that Shapesmith is not dead, like he speaks up like, my name is actually Shapesmith. Throughout all the subsequent fights, though, you see Powerplex continue to spiral more and more, getting crazier and crazier until the very end of the episode. Next big attempt is basically using the memorial for the people who died at Chicago during the Omni-Man fight, planning to attack him at the actual ceremony, which also doesn't go the way that he hoped. They pay off the joke with Paul not wanting to teleport, revealing that he's just flying the actual physical car there with them in it. There's a whole lot of Paul in this episode. I think just building up to the eventual reveal of what happens next with Debbie's storyline. Like, I think this is all just building towards that big reveal. Even though Paul has been charming this season, I'm generally not a huge fan of that storyline just because it is technically filler. Back at the Teen Tower, Robot reveals he's also a DJ in his spare time and builds a device to help Monster Girl reverse the effects of her curse, or at least stop the negative effects of her curse. Love the way he also gets super technical with the way her curse actually works, the way her powers actually work. Basically, the curse that allows her to turn into Monster Girl and back into human form magically rebuilds her from the ground up, kind of working like a teleporter from Star Trek, where it's more like a fax machine where it basically scans something, then breaks it down, and then rebuilds it somewhere else. That's essentially what's happening when she's transforming into Monster Girl, so the curse basically destroys her body, rebuilds the Monster Girl body, and then destroys that and rebuilds her original human body again. So it's like she's being teleported into different forms. The belt he cooked up hacks that, forcing the curse to use special reference cells from her current age when it rebuilds her genome each time. Sort of like storing her current genome in the Star Trek transporter buffer each time she needs to be rebuilt. So the idea now is that she won't get younger anymore. Technically, Robot could also probably find a way to reverse the curse so that she gets a little bit older each time she uses, if she wanted to get older. But I think their conversation after this, where he tries to tell her, like, no, if you don't want to use it, that's fine, you're perfect the way you are, means that he's not going to try and do that. The only other solution she has that would keep her from literally turning into a baby eventually, like basically being incapacitated every time she turned back from Monster Girl, would be if she never turned back form from Monster Girl into a human. The whole idea is that she only ages younger when she changes back into human form, so as long as she doesn't do that, she won't get younger. So if something ever happened to the belt or she wasn't wearing it, she'd be fine as long as she just didn't turn back into a human. Ray watches them, and it actually inspires her to flat out quit the team, quit being a superhero, so that she can live a normal life, do normal things that they wouldn't normally get a chance to do because they face villains all the time. Just like a couple episodes ago when they had to skip out on actually making dinner like a regular group of people because they had to face some villains. She tries to get Rex to quit the team with her so they can go live a normal life together, which he doesn't want to do. They also try to use this to show you how much he's grown as a person, but also I think to set up the solo episode they're doing for his backstory, like they did for the Adam Eve episode last year. Basically explain that he's afraid of letting go of what he thinks is his entire identity. He doesn't view his original life as even being that real because he lost it when he was so young. He never really got to be a child, so like this is the only life he's ever known. He doesn't want to leave that behind. Powerplex crashes the memorial, but Eve stops him before he can attack Invincible, proving that it's better to go smarter than go harder. She clocks instantly how his power works and shuts him down way quicker using the goo that she creates. Shapesmith coming back for a rematch with the Guardians of the Globe, who capture him and send him to that GDA prison. But he winds up finding a way to take just enough kinetic damage to power himself up and escape. There's a brief scene here, though, where Invincible and Eve pay tribute to the dead. He does feel deep remorse over what happened, but they use this episode to show you how much he's growing as a person as well, how it's shaping his view on what kind of superhero he wants to be, and what's going to happen in the battles to come during all that. Donald then gives Invincible all the data on Powerplex, who wants to try and find him and try and talk him down. So this is part of the tragedy. The whole idea is that if Powerplex had just waited, eventually Invincible would have showed up to talk to him no matter what. They also reveal that the GDA, Cecil, knows everything about Powerplex too, like, oh, he's one of our employees, he stole some technology, he's very dangerous. Notice they also use this conversation to remind Invincible that the devices that were watching him, the probes, were from Angstrom Levy, who we see in the post-credit scene, not from the GDA. There have been so many Invincible and Cecil memes the last couple weeks just because he seemed to get so pissed off at Cecil no matter what happened, he just blamed it on Cecil. One of the other important things here too, if it wasn't clear, Powerplex's wife is the one that told him to use her and his son as hostages as bait to get Invincible to show up. She's the one that developed that plan because he was ready to give up. So they're very careful to show you that he wasn't holding them there against their will, like she wanted to be there and brought their son with them to do this. When he sees the recording of him on the news too, you could kind of tell that Powerplex's speech was written by her and he's just trying to remember what he's supposed to say, like he kind of stammers his way through the speech. So even though he is very, very crazy in this episode, they also want to show you that his wife is almost just as crazy. You really do feel bad for his son, who did absolutely nothing bad during this episode, like did not deserve anything that happened to him. This time, though, obviously, he's able to confront Invincible, and even though he is able to hurt him with his lightning, he just soaks the damage. And the real tragedy here is that Powerplex winds up killing his wife and son through collateral damage, the very reason that he's gone after Invincible, ultimately driving him completely insane. Also love the way they visualize their deaths too. It's almost more horrifying because you're kind of imagining and you see the cinders floating across the camera like, oh, I know exactly what just happened. Couple of skeletons there, extra crispy. And you start to notice that even though it hurt him earlier, Invincible continues to soak all this energy damage like it's no big deal. Eventually it doesn't bother him that much, even though it is hurting him. He even tries to hug him until Powerplex eventually exhausts his supply. So he is genuinely feeling sorry here, trying to help Powerplex, like, you don't have to do this, dude, why are you doing this? So they also kind of use this to show you how much more powerful Invincible has gotten, that he can soak this much damage and just shrug it off. They take him to prison, revealing that the discs now are permanently in him. They can't remove him without killing him, so they're going to attempt to rehabilitate him very, very slowly. But also, Powerplex is going to try and use this opportunity to break out and try to kill him again. So we will see how that winds up going for him. As he talks to Adam Eve at the end of the episode, they show another one of Angstrom Levy's probes coming to watch him, and then they cut to the post-credit scene where we get a much better look at his base that he's been using since he survived his fight at the end of Season 2. Invincible did not kill him, he survived somehow, and he's been watching him ever since, building his forces, collecting all these evil versions of Invincible from across the multiverse. Also seems like he's been watching Invincible go around the world every single day since he's survived. Like he's just been sitting here in this chair watching all this footage of him all over the world. Couple of notable things here too. So his helmet device, his armor, his cape, everything he's wearing here is right out of the comics, and they reveal some of the Invincible variants from other universes that he's bringing to kill him with the Invincible War in next week's episode 7. What I'm expecting is it'll be all of episode 7 and most of episode 8. I don't know how much of episode 8 because that'll be the finale. They gotta leave some time for Conquest to show up because they'll probably do that for at least like the last 10 minutes of the episode, maybe more, we'll see. For the most part, they're trying to close the season on the Invincible War, but they're just teasing Conquest, so I think a lot of the Conquest stuff they'll save for season 4, so we'll only get like a little bit of him at the end of the finale. Also probably going to check in with that Omni-Man storyline in the Coalition before the end of the season 2, maybe next week's episode or maybe the finale. They might just save it for the finale. Generally, the idea, though, is the storylines continue, like they continue through the arcs of the comics. Things get crazier and crazier, like there's more and more escalation through the Viltrumite War, the Scourge Virus arc, the whole Thragg arc. There's a bunch more that we can't really mention because they're kind of spoilery. So if you have read the comics, try not to post spoilers for that in the comments. But if you want to, you can also read the comics because they're trying to be relatively faithful to the comics. So if you are impatient for season 4 episodes, you can read ahead as soon as you want. They're even going to be releasing a brand new Battle Beast comic book soon. If there's any other Easter eggs or references that you spotted in this week's episode that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. In my full episode 7 video we'll post next week. Like I said, real big Invincible War finally going down in next week's episode. The other big reminder is that Daredevil Born Again episodes start next week. I'll be doing videos week to week. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of those. I also just did a video for The Boys Season 5 teaser they released because Jared Padalecki and Misha Collins are coming. They're going to have a real big supernatural reunion during Season 5. Click here to watch that, and click here for all my other Invincible episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.